Have you ever made up an excuse to cancel weekend plans, just so you could stay home and do absolutely nothing? Society calls it lazy, but neuroscience says your brain is in emergency survival mode. You don't lack ambition, you are just silently rebelling against a world that won't stop screaming. Let's be completely honest about the culture we are forced to navigate today. From the moment you open your eyes in the morning, you are expected to perform. You are told to hustle, to optimize every single hour, to network, to build a personal brand, and to constantly project this exhausting main character energy to everyone around you. The pressure to always be visible, always be doing something noteworthy, and always be available has created an absolute epidemic of chronic social burnout. If your weekend isn't packed with aesthetic coffee shop visits, road trips, or loud social gatherings, you are subtly conditioned to feel a creeping sense of guilt. You are made to feel like you are failing at life, like you are somehow falling behind the rest of the world. But what if that guilt is a complete lie? What if your deep, unspoken craving for a quiet, predictable, and utterly unremarkable day isn't a sign of depression, antisocial behavior, or a lack of drive? Welcome to the invisible rebellion. When you intentionally choose to stay in your most comfortable clothes, watch the rain hit the window, or engage in the exact same mundane routine you follow every single week, you are not giving up on life. You are actively pushing back against a toxic attention economy. The modern world demands your constant, unwavering psychological engagement. Every notification, every invitation, and every social expectation is violently fighting for a fraction of your cognitive bandwidth. Over time, this relentless extraction of your emotional energy leaves your nervous system completely shattered. So, when you finally close your front door, turn the lock, and sink into the profound, heavy silence of your own home, something truly remarkable begins to happen. You are not isolating yourself out of weakness. You are engaging in a highly sophisticated biological defense mechanism. The ability to sit completely alone in silence, to intensely crave routine, and to find absolute, undisturbed peace in a boring life is actually a profound evolutionary advantage. It is a rare psychological trait that 90% of modern humans have completely lost the ability to access because they are terrified of their own thoughts. While everyone else is running their mental health into the ground, chasing the next temporary hit of external validation, you have intuitively discovered the ultimate psychological luxury. You haven't lost your passion for living, you are simply remembering how to breathe. To understand why you deeply crave a boring life, we have to look at what is actively happening inside your brain the moment you step out of your front door. We currently live in what neuroscientists and psychologists call the attention economy. Every single billboard, every algorithmic social media feed, every crowded street, and every casual conversation is meticulously engineered to extract your attention. To process this endless stream of information, your brain relies on a heavy cocktail of neurochemicals, primarily dopamine and cortisol. But here is the hidden crisis. The modern world pumps these chemicals into your system at a violently unnatural rate. For many people, especially those who are introverted or possess high sensitivity, this constant barrage of sensory data forces the sympathetic nervous system, the part of your brain responsible for the primal fight or flight response, to stay permanently switched on. You might just be walking through a seemingly normal Tuesday, but biologically, your brain is operating as if it is under constant, invisible threat. This is exactly why something as simple and normalized as going out for coffee with an acquaintance can leave you feeling entirely depleted. Society views this as a low-effort, relaxing activity. But for your specific nervous system, a crowded cafe is a massive, overwhelming data processing center. Your brain is unconsciously tracking the subtle, shifting facial expressions of the person across from you. It is simultaneously trying to filter out the overlapping, noisy conversations from the tables nearby, adjusting to the harsh, artificial lighting, and actively managing your own social performance, also known as masking, to ensure you appear engaged, normal, and polite. You are not just sitting there sipping a drink, your brain is computing thousands of microstimuli every single second. This phenomenon is known clinically as sensory overstimulation. Your social battery isn't draining because you are weak, flawed, or antisocial. It is draining because your brain is functioning like a high-powered computer running 50 complex, heavy applications at the exact same time. Eventually, the hardware simply starts to overheat. You hit a wall of absolute cognitive fatigue. And this is precisely where your craving for a boring life originates. It is not a lifestyle preference. It is a strict biological imperative. When you retreat to the utter predictability of your own home, you are doing something remarkable. You are placing your exhausted brain into a neurological intensive care unit. The moment you close that front door and step into your quiet space, you remove all unexpected stimuli. This instantly sends a powerful signal to your brain that it is finally safe to power down the sympathetic nervous system. The parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest network, immediately takes over. Without the constant, exhausting demand to react to the outside world, your brain begins the critical work of clearing out the toxic cognitive waste that has built up throughout the day. It stabilizes your heart rate, regulates your breathing, and actively flushes the stress hormone cortisol from your bloodstream. The boring, repetitive routine you crave. Whether it is staring blankly at a wall, rewatching the exact same comfort movie for the 10th time, or making a cup of tea in complete, unbroken silence, is not a waste of your time. It is a highly efficient, scientifically necessary process of neurological repair. You are quite literally healing your own brain through the profound power of intentional understimulation. There is a profound misconception in our modern society that a predictable life is a stagnant life. We are constantly told that routine is the enemy of progress, that if you know exactly what your Tuesday evening is going to look like, you are somehow trapped in a comfort zone and failing to grow. But this brings us to the first major psychological twist of your quiet reality. The predictability you so deeply crave is not a prison. It is a highly strategic launchpad. Think about the well-documented concept of decision fatigue. Every single choice you make throughout the day, what to wear, how to respond to a passive-aggressive email, what to eat for lunch, how to navigate heavy traffic, or how to politely exit an exhausting conversation, consumes a measurable amount of glucose in your brain. By the time the afternoon rolls around, a person who is constantly exposing themselves to new, unpredictable, and highly stimulating environments has completely depleted their cognitive reserves. This is exactly why some of the most brilliant, creative, and highly intelligent minds in history have meticulously engineered incredibly boring lives for themselves. They wear the exact same clothes every day. They eat the exact same meals. They walk the exact same routes. They are not doing this because they lack imagination. They are doing it to aggressively eliminate trivial decisions. By making their external physical world entirely predictable, they are actively preserving their mental energy for high-level, complex thought. But what actually happens to your brain when you finally strip away all the chaos, lock the door, and sink into a perfectly boring, predictable routine? Neuroscience provides a fascinating answer, and it revolves around a system called the default mode network, or the DM. When you are actively focused on a demanding task or navigating a loud, unpredictable social environment, your DMN is completely suppressed. Your brain is in strict defense mode, merely reacting to whatever threat or stimulus is directly in front of it. However, the very second you step back into your quiet sanctuary and engage in a completely mindless, repetitive task, like folding laundry, staring out a window, or simply lying in bed listening to the hum of the refrigerator, your brain realizes it no longer needs to defend itself. The external world becomes perfectly static. And in that exact moment of absolute physical boredom, the default mode network fiercely awakens. The DMN is the neurological epicenter of human creativity, empathy, and deep emotional processing. It is the part of the brain that connects seemingly unrelated ideas, processes unresolved trauma, and reflects on who you are truly becoming. When you are living a boring life on the outside, your brain is finally free to be wildly colorful, chaotic, and brilliant on the inside. All those times society told you that you were just spacing out, daydreaming, or wasting time doing absolutely nothing, your brain was actually doing its most critical, high-level processing. You are not empty. You are simply shifting your energy inward. This massive internal shift is the hidden secret behind profound emotional intelligence. You see, it is biologically impossible to truly understand your own inner world if you are perpetually busy reacting to the outer world. People who are addicted to chaos, drama, and constant motion often use the noise of the world to drown out their own unresolved thoughts. But you, by choosing the quiet, boring life, you are choosing to sit face to face with yourself. You are allowing your raw emotions to rise to the surface, observing them without the desperate need to immediately distract yourself. That takes an immense amount of psychological courage. The next time someone implies that your life is uninteresting or too quiet, realize this: your external boredom is nothing more than a meticulously crafted suit of armor. It is a protective shell that guards a fiercely rich, deeply complex, and beautiful internal world that they will simply never get the privilege to see. But here is where we must pause. Stop romanticizing the quiet life for a moment and confront a very uncomfortable psychological truth. While a predictable, boring routine can be the ultimate cure for a burned-out nervous system, it can also become a highly deceptive trap. There is a razor-thin, almost invisible line between intentionally stepping away from the world to heal and locking yourself away because you are completely terrified of it. Solitude is an incredibly potent medicine for the modern mind, but just like any powerful medicine, an overdose will eventually turn it into a poison. You have to look closely at your own behavior and understand the stark difference between genuine peace and emotional numbness. When you spend 3 days straight inside your house, entirely disconnected from the outside world, what is the underlying texture of that isolation? Do you feel a profound sense of relief, clarity, and grounding? Or do you feel a lingering, heavy apathy? Numbness is not peace. It is not the absence of stress. Numbness is a psychological anesthetic. It is the equivalent of hitting the mute button on your life because the volume of your unresolved trauma, your anxiety, or your hidden grief has simply become too loud to endure. This brings us to a confrontational question that you must be brave enough to ask yourself in the silence of your room. Are you using your perfectly predictable, boring routine to recharge your energy? Or are you using it as an elaborate, heavily fortified shield to run away from something you do not want to face? Agoraphobia, severe social anxiety, and chronic depression do not always announce themselves with dramatic panic attacks or uncontrollable tears. Very often, they disguise themselves as a deep, cozy, perfectly rationalized preference for staying in bed. If your boring life is primarily motivated by a fear of failure, a fear of being judged, or a desperate need to avoid the terrifying unpredictability of human vulnerability, then your home is no longer a sanctuary. It has slowly, quietly morphed into a self-made prison. You are no longer protecting your peace, you are protecting your pain. To ensure that your quiet life remains a source of power rather than a symptom of avoidance, you must master the psychological art of intentional grounding. This is the framework that separates those who are thriving in solitude from those who are simply rotting in it. Intentional grounding means you do not just default to isolation because you are too exhausted to deal with life. Instead, you actively choose your solitude with a specific, conscious purpose. If you are cancelling plans to stay in this weekend, what exactly are you doing with that silence? If you are just migrating from the bed to the couch, endlessly scrolling through short-form content and paralyzing your brain with cheap digital dopamine to make the hours pass, that is not rest. That is escapism. True, healthy solitude requires fierce presence. It means closing the laptop, putting away the phone, and doing the slow, beautifully boring things that actually anchor you back to your physical body. It is tending to your plants, cooking a meal from scratch and paying attention to the smell of the spices, reading a physical book, journaling your chaotic thoughts, or simply allowing yourself to cry if you need to release the tension of the week. When you practice intentional grounding, your boring life ceases to be a hiding place. It becomes a sacred, deliberate ritual of self-restoration, allowing you to eventually step back out into the loud world, not out of obligation, but out of genuine, renewed strength. Let us step outside the isolation of your room for a moment and look at how this craving for a quiet life dictates the way you interact with the rest of the world. One of the most profound side effects of embracing a boring life is what happens to your social circle. In evolutionary psychology, there is a concept known as Dunbar's number, which suggests there is a hard biological limit to the number of people with whom a human being can maintain stable, meaningful relationships. The modern world, especially through the lens of social media, aggressively violates this limit. You are constantly expected to keep up with hundreds of acquaintances, continuously trading shallow updates just to maintain a fragile illusion of connection. But when you actively choose a predictable, quiet life, you completely disrupt this toxic social game. Your boring routine acts as an incredibly ruthless, highly efficient psychological filter. By simply refusing to participate in the endless rotation of loud social events, forced networking, and superficial weekend plans, you naturally starve out the energy vampires, the people who only value you for the temporary entertainment or emotional validation you can provide them. What you are left with is a heavily guarded microcircle of relationships. And while society might view a tiny social circle as a lack of popularity, psychology views it as the absolute pinnacle of relational intelligence. When you are no longer desperate for external stimulation, the very definition of a quality relationship completely changes for you. You stop looking for friends or romantic partners who can keep you constantly entertained, and you start looking for people who can help you protect your peace. Think about the most profound connections you currently have in your life. The true test of intimacy is not how well two people can hold a charismatic conversation at a crowded, noisy dinner party. The ultimate test of intimacy is the capacity for shared, uninterrupted silence. It is the incredibly rare ability to sit in the exact same room with someone for hours, each of you completely absorbed in your own mundane tasks, reading a physical book, working on a laptop, or just staring out the window, without feeling that suffocating, anxious pressure to fill the empty air with words. When you find someone whose nervous system naturally co-regulates with yours in complete silence, you have found something extraordinary. You do not need daily updates, dramatic emotional highs, or exhausting social performances to know the bond is secure. The boredom itself becomes the unbreakable foundation of trust. You feel profoundly seen, not because of what you are saying to each other, but because you are both allowed to simply exist, entirely unmasked, without the heavy burden of having to entertain the other person. This absolute requirement for quiet predictability extends far beyond your friendships. It is the fundamental secret behind your highest levels of focus and creation. In a culture that glorifies the chaotic hustle, we are falsely taught that greatness comes from constant motion and endless collaboration. But if you look at the architecture of the human brain, peak cognitive performance, what psychologists call the flow state, cannot occur in a state of constant distraction. Flow is a state of deep, effortless concentration where your sense of time completely vanishes. And here is the undeniable truth. You cannot enter a flow state while your brain is busy reacting to a noisy, unpredictable environment. Every beautiful piece of art, every complex problem ever solved, and every profound realization you have ever had required a foundation of extreme, undisturbed boredom. When you strip away the frantic multitasking and sink into a perfectly predictable, quiet routine, you are engaging in deep work. Your brain is finally allowed to dive into the absolute depths of a single thought without being violently pulled back to the surface by a notification or a sudden demand. The world might look at your quiet, uneventful afternoon and see absolutely nothing happening. But beneath the surface of that profound stillness, your mind is silently building empires. We live in a society that is absolutely terrified of obscurity. From a very young age, you are handed a script that says the ultimate goal of human existence is to become a somebody. You are taught to chase titles, to accumulate digital validation, and to broadcast your milestones so that the world knows you actually matter. But as you step back into the quiet rhythm of your boring life, you begin to realize a deeply liberating truth. The ultimate luxury in this hyper-connected era is not being famous, constantly busy, or universally understood. The absolute ultimate luxury is having the courage to be a nobody. There is a profound, almost spiritual joy in being completely unobserved. When no one knows where you are, what you are doing, or what you are thinking, you are finally free from the exhausting performance of modern identity. You are not defined by your career trajectory, your weekend plans, or the aesthetic photos you refuse to post. You do not have to earn your right to exist through constant productivity. Sitting on your couch, watching the evening light slowly fade across your living room floor, You are already completely, undeniably enough. Your quiet life is not a failure of ambition. It is a masterpiece of intentional peace. So, please, stop apologizing for the silence you deeply crave. Embrace your gloriously ordinary, predictably boring days as the profound evolutionary gifts they truly are. If you found a piece of yourself in this video, I want you to leave a comment below and tell me your absolute favorite part about having a completely quiet, boring day at home. And if you want to continue exploring the deep psychology of intentional living with a community that actually understands you, make sure to subscribe to the channel. But for now, you have my full permission to turn this video off, put your phone in another room, and sink deeply into a beautifully boring evening. You have earned your rest.